from my writing to spirituality to crazy experiences, and most importantly, what inspires us and what we consider important to ourselves. Let's get to it. I want to thank Samir Khan again for joining us today. Links to my debut novel and Samir Khan's debut EP with his outfit Karma Sheen are available in the bio below. So please give them a look and enjoy the show. That's a habit I got from Akeem as well, actually. Like, instead of swearing, he'd say flipping, and I started doing that as well. Like,
it honestly, personally, I believe that it's so much more refreshing than saying fuck.
yeah,
If you say like, oh, effing hell, man, it just, I think honestly, what I've recognized in myself when I say that is that I feel this sense of maturity and this sense of I just feel very noble, very very humble when I say that instead of saying fuck, because I have the choice, you know.
You do, yeah. And it's like you're making an effort to be more polite, which shows that in situations where it's probably not appropriate to say the F word, that you're aware of it, but you're also expressing yourself. So you're getting both, isn't you? It's like a win-win.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, it is, and also there's no limit.
What the flip?
Yeah, like, what the flip? Like FNL, like, you could literally be in front of the Queen and say, "Oh, flipping heck," you know?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
And they'd just be like, "Yeah, okay, cool," you know, because I've made that choice. It's very strange because I still say fuck, and I go as far as to say cunt all the time, man, because I enjoy using that word. I can't lie.
Yeah.
However, you know, I don't believe in that whole fucking Facebook self-actualization. Studies show that people who swear tell the truth more often. Like, no, it doesn't, because I fucking lie all the time, man, and I swear the fuck time.
Well, I criticised that on the site, actually. That there's a line in one of the articles, I think, that says how every week there's a new study that shows, and if anything, all we've learned is that people believe something as long as it says a new study shows. Like, it's just BSing, in my opinion. Like, I need to see it to believe it, personally.
Yeah,
You know.
and also, why don't you just use that study and apply that to yourself and be honest? You know, it took me a long time to realize that actually I'm not 100% honest with myself, and I don't think anyone is. I think it's impossible to be 100% honest with yourself.
Yeah, it's very tricky. It's very difficult, and
yeah. So when people say, "Oh, you're honest," or if you swear more, it means you tell the truth more often. No, it fucking doesn't, because there are times where I can apply that to myself only, and I can only speak to myself for myself. There are times where I think, shit, you know what? I should have said something, but I didn't. Is that me being dishonest? I think that is, because I didn't stand up for what I believed in. I didn't actually say what my opinion is. I didn't voice something that would have been truth, but I decided to stay silent. And I believe that staying silent it's not as dire as a lie, you know, as a straight up lie, but it does tingle or dance on that thin wire of dishonesty.
If you felt like deep down there was something you could have done or said and you didn't do it, then yeah, That's where you come in with you saying you're being dishonest with yourself, because obviously deep down you knew you should have done something or said something, and yeah.
Exactly, man. Exactly, and that's what I believe about that, man.
It's funny as well, because how do you know you're being honest with yourself as well sometimes? Like, some people will say, I'm being honest with myself, and then they're actually just being harsh on themselves. And being harsh isn't really being honest sometimes either. Sometimes you're being too critical when you've actually done okay. So it's finding the kind of balance as well, I think.
I think that's very true. I think ultimately it all stems down to just being kind to yourself, doesn't it?
It's finding that place, yeah.
And I think just to add, just to go back to what we started the conversation off with initially about, you know, swearing, like saying effing kind of thing. That, I think that's being more kind to yourself, because
Hmm.
you're using a kind word. When I think about it now, in this moment, when I think about it now, I think I will retract everything I say and I've said before, and I will say this as something definitive. When I say things like effing, flipping, instead of saying the actual word,
Mm.
I'm actually being kinder to myself, because those words, I don't know whether you notice, but when you speak, your chest vibrates. You can feel a deep vibration in your chest when you speak.
Hmm.
So those words that you use, I think, are a reflection of how you make yourself feel on the inside.
Mm.
So using nice words like love or
Compassion or something like that.
commitment, you know,
Hmm.
kindness. When you say those words, like, automatically you just feel great. You know, you keep saying, you know, when you're in a bad mood and you say like, oh, f f f f f, like all the time, you know, you don't feel any better for it.
Yeah, unless it's, a rage, and then you're just letting rage out, then yeah, it doesn't really add anything to your mood. And even then, if you're in a rage, it's basically just like letting it out into something, isn't it? Like, someone probably said, effing this, effing that, punching a punching bag, or I don't know, effing at a video game,
Yeah, and I think, to be
like
honest,
effing Ferdinand in FIFA or some shit. Your entire reality, in a sense, is obviously being thought, well, not thought, but interpreted by your senses. So if you're like putting language on top of it, over too loud, which I had done in the past,
uh,
you become less aware of things. Like, I'm always aware of,
give me an example.
um,
Being put into practice, like the wrong practice, and then what you've learned.
yeah. Well, there's a great book I read, Why Buddhism is True, and it was this psychologist who had anger issues learning to meditate, and he met this seasoned meditator, this American guy, and they'd done brain scans on him and found out that the parts of the brain that light up usually for people when they're going about their daily life, which is, I imagine what he was getting at was like the stream of conscious voice. You've got a lot of people have an inner monologue. You're hearing uh, coming and go, and you're hearing words in your head, and you're like, doing this, doing that.
All the time. Even
Yeah, yeah,
sometimes in conversation, oh, I think I should say this,
yeah,
or
yeah.
am I making sense? Should I explain it again? And then you cut your own conversation, and then you try to reword what it is you've just said. You know?
Yeah, and it's not a terrible thing. It's a sign of someone who's bright, I think. But there's another level where you can not even go above it, but once you're aware of that you're aware and you have that quietness, you kind of always start making the best decision on what to say and what to do. It's it's just a little tripwire almost for when you become that bright, that you can get reflective so that you're bouncing back and forth in your own head. Like, you know, you're wondering, did I say that thing right, like you said, or did I do the right thing there? But yeah, this meditator, he'd quieted his mind to the point where he went about his daily life basically without a thought of I. Like, we talk, obviously the ego gets mentioned a lot in this stuff. But yeah, he never once thought. He goes about his daily life almost like a child, like he should, but an aware adult, so an intelligent adult, but with the ability to feel and to get a sense of the surroundings like a child. You know, like he can be fascinated by a table or something, you know, that would seem trivial to a lot of people, especially in a place like London, I imagine, where everyone's rushing all the time. Like, it's in your head, isn't it? Or it's, you see it around you all the time. People, they act so busy, like they've got something so important to do, to go to, like there's somewhere so important to be all the time.
Yeah, but actually,
Yeah,
there isn't. Everyone just likes to live in this bubble of their own mind. And
exactly, yeah.
I feel like I'm stuck in between. Because obviously, I think you are a product of your own environment. And I do believe very strongly that, what do you call it? Sorry, one second.
That's all right.
Right. And I do believe very strongly that despite being a product of your own environment, you do get sucked into it without realizing, you know?
Yeah.
And knowing what you do know, you do find yourself breaking out of that not monotonous environmental cycle, so to speak, you know? Then there are times where I'm walking down, let's say, Euston Square, and I am walking down it and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, man, this place is awesome. And I'm just having a look, and it's just an art building, like a building where they distribute, or where they put on galleries and events of art and things like that. You know,
Yeah.
I'm looking at them thinking, wow, this looks amazing. Or even in Camden, even, man, where there's this beautiful building. I think they call it the Sphinx Building. It has two sphinxes with it. And I look at it all the time, man. And I just think, oh, it's really wonderful. And I think that, well, I believe more than anything that you tend to realize that where you're going isn't necessarily the place that you want to be. You know?
Yeah.
You always try to look for moments to be here, to be now. Job. I'm doing sales, bruv. I go there for 4.5 hours before I realize that fucking hell, this day is getting long. I get to go home and I get to play music and I get to practice and I get to and I also get to not just practice music, but I get to practice, you know, mindfulness and things like that.
Yeah, I mean that's why I'm where I am now. Same reason.
So during the midst of all of that, I realized that, man, I remember during my lunch break, I just never took any time for myself. It was only near the end, and I really mean it, the last 3 to 4 days, that, because I would get in at 9 o'clock, I would start at 10 and finish at 3. That's a fucking life, mate. Honestly, that is the life. And I would always make it a point, all right, I need to get into work for 9:30, and I would push my absolute best to make sure that I'm at the office at 9:30, and then when I'm there, you know, I'll just sit for like half an hour. No one would tell me anything. I wouldn't say anything. I wouldn't start work or whatever. But then I thought, you know what? I'll put my phone down. I'll actually grab a coffee and I'll sit there and have a coffee and just stare outside the window for a bit and just look at people, what they're doing. And that always gave me a much more motivated, much more, it was just a sense of calmness, you know, a bigger sense of calm to to the rest of the day. And I think a lot of people are lost in the importance of money, because although it's going to be very controversial, yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I do believe that money is important, and I think it should be a priority for people, man. I think it should be a priority for everybody. However, I don't think you should devote your life to trying to make it, or to trying to keep a job, or to try and keep a something or whatever. Because honestly, man, it's not it's not what do you call it? It's not the end of the world. I've got another job lined up, for example, for the whole of October at least. So at least I know I'm not out of pocket at all, despite the fact that I have a 2-week paid holiday. They agreed to pay me at least until the end of the month. So so I'm sorted, I guess, in that respect.
Well,
if you devote your life to devotion, and what I mean by that is devoting your life to something that you want to devote yourself to. When you look at Sufism, or when you look at Hindustani classical music, man, you look at Hindustani classical music, man, you have guitarists in London, they just practice, they practice every night until it hurts, until their fingers are bleeding. Hindustani classical musicians, they don't practice, they devote their time, they devote their souls, Practice is a devotion of your time. Actually, no. Practice is a commitment to your time.
Yeah.
Devotion is like devoting your soul to the practice of music, or of art, or of getting better, or education, whatever it is. And I find that when you devote yourself to your art, you're way more happier
Absolutely.
in your life.
You can't call it in. You can't phone it in. You can't be a session musician and say you love being a musician. Can you? You got to play. You got to really play. And play means play. It means, like, you can practice, but if the ego's there, if it's about impressing someone, it's not gonna be. It's not gonna. It's okay. It might be impressive at first, but people won't remember it. What people remember is someone who played with their heart and their soul, if you will. And that might be like a crazy cliche sentiment in this day and age, but it's still true. And I think all the best stuff out there is stuff where someone's really shown something about themselves, or put a piece of themselves into what they're doing. And I think that's especially true of your band right now.
I think you mentioned that it sounds a bit cliche, and I want to pick up on that, because my cousin, he's hands down one of the most, if not the most inspiring person in my life personally. I think, obviously after what's happened, with regarding like my family and our loss of my dad, and now of course I think, what would Dad do? But at the same time, I also think, what would my cousin do? What would he do in the situation? How would he conduct himself? I consider him to be on that level of an inspiration for me. And I'll tell you what. When he's read at least 150 to like 200 self-help books alone, just self-help books, and he says that he's read enough to realize that they all mention one thing, or at least it has one common rule, that the whole entire universe is built and run on cliches and universal truths. And I really believe that, man. When I see some people like playing something, like there's this one musician, his name is Tom McHugh. Yeah. His music surfaced because some guy decided to post a video of it, and honestly, I just look at this guy playing 3 chords, and it's one chord and then half a chord and then another half a chord and going back to that one chord, and it's the same rhythm, and his lyrics are the same melody. Do you remember? And he mentions an important figure, and then the chorus is, "But do you remember Benazibuto? Whoa, whoa." And you just look at this video, you just watch it, and you think, man, there's something about this guy. The song is so simple. It's nothing special. It wouldn't beat, for example, Billie Jean. You know, it wouldn't
Yeah, yeah,
beat. It wouldn't beat Dark Side of the Moon.
yeah.
But there's something about it that you wake up the next morning, you're thinking, but do you remember? Better is it whoa, it's like, because you see his soul in that, man. You see that
That's
he's
it.
written that with his soul. And I definitely, I totally agree with that. I can't disagree with that, even in the slightest.
Even bands I like, I can think of all my bands I've enjoyed over the years, and even Daft Punk, right? The first band I ever got into. Um, are we playing that song now?
No, I wasn't. I was just, while we were talking, I was just having a bit of a strum.
Oh yeah, just a bit of a strum. That's cool.
Always playing guitar.
You know, kind of, I think there's a power of music anyway. Everyone knows that. It's a life's a vibration kind of deal. Another cliche, but also true.
No, but it is true. It's the
Yeah,
truth, and it goes back to what I said about being kind to yourself. Also means using those words that are kind to yourself.
your vibrations. Yeah.
The vibration, buddy. It's the vibration that goes into your body. And if
Hmm.
anyone thinks that's ridiculous, then maybe they should sit one day and really consciously feel their body vibrate, or at least the little hum that they
Yeah.
feel when they speak, and just speak beautiful, lovely words, or just talk about something in a beautiful way. You don't have to express it. You just have to feel like, I don't want to use any bad words, any negatives, no
Yeah.
buts, no Fs, no blinds, no nothing.
Yeah.
Just something that's really interesting and wholesome and truthful, man.
So, with regards to music again, I was just gonna say that on top of that, even about the putting the love into the music, um, all the bands I've ever liked, I think, have had a piece of that somewhere, and that includes even Daft Punk. Like I was gonna say, they are an electronic band that did use samples, right? Their first album is entirely made of samples from other music, and you think, where's the heart in that? But the fact was, for Daft Punk, and I believe this is why their music became popular back in the 90s, is because they picked up um, records they loved. Like they've expressed it in all their interviews, like disco, that era, um, and funk. They loved all the music coming from those scenes, like with passion, and they put it
Yeah,
into their work, and they made a mosaic in a way, or collage of things they loved, and it turned into a beautiful piece of art made from other beautiful pieces of art. So it can go across the board, I think, in music. It's not including the individual soul and also the soul of someone who loves the work of others. That's the kind of like canvas you've got, isn't it? It's like so much to be done with, and as long as there's love there and you put it into it, as long as you express a piece of yourself in some way or another, even if it's through something else, as long as your piece of your heart's there, your love's there, it
it's,
comes
it's
through.
yeah, it's very, very true, very, very true,
Yeah.
and I definitely agree with that, man.
Yeah. So yeah, but I just like I thought it's a good juxtaposition, obviously the soulful individual and also the soulful appreciator. They can both show you something amazing if they reveal a piece of what they love or a
Yeah.
piece of something that's important to them, whatever it is.
Sometimes it could just be a melody. I mean,
Yeah.
even like, for example, if I just If I just do something like the first thing that comes to my mind.
Yeah.
Even that,
Yeah.
you know, just something that is. I think it's kind of like in a sense is my go-to like melody, but I feel like every time I pick up a guitar, I'm not really picking up a piece of wood with some metal and some electronics. I feel like I'm picking up a piece of myself, or like in a sense that I'm a transformer, and I've just connected this extra piece on me that isn't an extra piece now. It's an extension of myself.
I think that this can go to creativity in general, right? Like a piece of someone, you said a transformer, it could be like if someone really loves racing cars, imagine how they must feel when they get in their car, you know?
Oof, like F1 drivers, you know. I
Yeah.
mean, my in motorsport, I'm only really versed in F1, and that's because I think in 2003 I went to Silverstone with my dad. I think it was 2003 or was it 2004? But it was just one of the most wonderful experiences I've ever had, and you can't say since then I've been hooked. But since then I've always had one eye, like half an eye on it. Like, what's going on? What are the new rules of this year? Or who's killing it? Like, who wasn't killing it last time? Like all those years ago, you know, kind of thing.
So
And you really see the passion, for example, of like Lewis Hamilton or Fernando Alonso.
definitely.
Alonso, I really rate him as a driver, and I think half the reason I rate him is I haven't seen him win anything in such a long time. I haven't seen him win a championship, even get close in a long time since Vettel won 4 in a row, Hamilton, Raikkonen won it, and all that jazz. I haven't seen him get close, but still, I love what he does because because he has so much passion when he does drive, you know.
Whatever you're doing, it's sort of pulling back the mask, right? That's kind of what a lot of people say, and being almost in a state of, what do you call it actually? You know, it's hard to perfectly describe it, but it's almost as if you're not in control, but you are in control, isn't it? It's like,
I would say I would use that phrase, your essential self.
yeah, I've read that as well, the higher self, where it's, you know, behind the usual chatter of the mind is the higher self, which some people call it where the sparks of inspiration come from. You know, this graceful expression, whatever you're doing. You know, it could be someone. It doesn't even matter what the thing is. You know, it could be the way someone walks. Even it will just stand out to you on the street, or it could be, you know, the leaf on a tree. It doesn't have to be a person, but in terms of people, we'll say that whatever the person is doing, when that thing's happening and it's flowing, you'd notice it. And the same with you and your music. You've got your guitar always attached to you, right?
Yeah.
As much as you can, because that's where you know that's flowing through you and into the noises, the sounds, the harmonies, whatever you're doing. I could hear it when you're doing it there, actually. Like there's happening in it. It's obviously you practice it, but I've like watching videos of you play. You clearly love doing it as well.
Yeah, of course, and I think it's just I want to be very careful when I use that word escapism, because for me I haven't quite
The thing, I think that's a silly word where I'm at now myself. I mean, what are we exactly escaping? Like we're all there's nothing to escape really. Like life's happening in whatever way it wants to happen, I think.
Yes, very much indeed, buddy, very much indeed.
Well, just my opinion anyway.
No, but it's true. It's always happening, no matter what happens. It's always happening, and ultimately, what happens is that you know, like ultimately it just comes down to like escaping probably your mind, man. Because when you live in your mind, you don't see the real world. I don't. It's Osho says
Hmm.
that mind can never be present, and I really believe that. Because when I heard him say that mind can never be present, you're either wondering what happened before or
Yeah.
thinking about what's going to happen next. I sat and thought, oh my God. And in that moment when I sat and thought, I became conscious that, oh my God, my mind is only there, or it's there. It's not here.
Yeah.
When I'm here, when I'm talking to you, I'm not thinking about what I'm going to say next. I'm not dwelling into the filing cabinet of information that I have to try and pick out something
Hmm.
to say to you, or to repeat myself, or to try and swing the conversation into a different way. All I'm doing is I'm just being here, and I feel like I am giving you an honest reflection of what's happening right now in this moment. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah. And I've actually had an English teacher said that as well. As long as you don't think about it, it happens in a way. Which
Yeah.
it seems so silly as well if you think for a teacher to tell you
No,
that.
it's not silly at all. I saw a movie many years ago. I don't know. There was a teacher in it. It's not Coach Carter. I think it either had Denzel Washington or Morgan Freeman in it. But I know it had one of those two. I'm sure of it. So it was about this black inner city dude going to an inner city school, very clever, and he was talking about writing and everything like that. And this guy who was inspiring him, he said, "You write first, you think later." And I've never forgotten that. I've forgotten the film. I'm pretty sure I'm wrong about the actors I just mentioned as well, really. But I never forgot that line. Write first, think later.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know, there was another philosopher or something. He said, "Write drunk, edit sober."
Oh yeah, yeah. I know that one. That's Hemingway.
And I thought, yeah, it was
Yeah, it's
Hemingway. I
true.
thought, cool.
It's obviously it doesn't have to be necessarily like drunk, actually drunk either. It's just whatever, drunk on ideas or drunk on inspiration. Well, that's how I interpret things like that myself. You know,
Well,
I don't always feel the need to be drunk.
when this guy is smashing like 3 lines for breakfast, and then like
Yeah.
go into a pub and having a liquid lunch, and then smoking a joint just to level him out, and then just writing and thinking. That's when you kind of know, like, oh, well, I don't think he meant drunk on the idea. I think he definitely meant you're like effed out of your brain, man.
Well, whatever gets you there, you know, there's some people take the nice easy road there. Some people want the hardcore rock and roll way.
Yeah,
Hunter
yeah, exactly.
Thompson, you know. If you heard of Hunter Thompson, he was a famous American writer for Rolling Stone. He was like he called it gonzo journalism, where instead of writing about something, he'd put himself in the middle of what was going on and sometimes cause the stories. And he'd go to places with a tr a car boot full of drugs, and he'd wake up and he'd just smash a load of stuff. Literally what you just said, like he'd have a bunch of lines of coke, then he'd go liquid breakfast, then he might drop some acid or some mescaline. Then then he would go to wherever the story's happening, and then he would see what the fuck's going through his mind when he's like off his nut, and then he'll come back and write about that. Stay up all night, do some more coke, fall asleep, and then wake up and do it all again the next day. Like some people are that crazy, and he was that guy.
I've always thought about doing that one day. I mean, honestly, it's so strange that.
If it suits you, you know, it doesn't suit me. Like, I would, I've dabbled, you know, we had some, that's how we hung out, wasn't it, originally? But
That's
like,
like, that's how we
um,
met. I was like, "Yo, what's the message?" Yeah, all right, cool. Hang on.
yeah.
I went to the toilet, and I had a tab and a half left. And what I did was that I took the half tab, but then and I halved the whole one. I was like, because I got to give you
You didn't want to
a
like, yeah, you thought better. This guy ain't done it before, so I don't want him to like disappear or something. Yeah, but no, it was
yeah.
cool. I didn't even like see loads of crazy stuff that day. I did feel some very strong emotions though, and it definitely tapped into a part of me that was very I don't know, you want to call it spiritual, whatever. It was it was a very good feeling. It was a loving feeling as well for like the world I was in, the world I am in, the reality I'm in.
Honestly, it really. I mean, I remember that. I remember that batch. I don't think I've done it since. Oh, I did it once after, and it was maybe 2 years after. Like we saw each other. I did it
Mm,
2 years after again. Like we saw each other. And that was in Slovakia, watching the sun, watching the sunrise. Even after this festival,
yeah.
don't ever do acid at a festival, man. It's really intense. I'm lucky because I feel like my mind is built quite strong. Like it's built to withstand these. My friend wasn't having a bad time, but I could see that if I didn't kind of guide him, and it wasn't
Mm,
even a conscious thought. I just felt like, well, I'm just gonna try and calm him down.
yeah, yeah.
It was like 4 o'clock in the
Just
morning.
follow that inner guide. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. This guy was playing dark dubstep, and then I just broke it down to him. I said, I can see that you're feeling a bit uncomfortable. And I was like, listen to where we are right now. We're in a tent in the middle of a fucking field, and this guy's idea of dark dubstep is to add circus sounds to minor sevenths and minor fifths. Like, listen to that. I said, it sounds cool, but it's definitely not dark. Think about the circus. It's fucking hilarious. It's chaotic. He's just making chaotic music. And then I kind of saw him. Obviously, I was tripping out as well, but I
Yeah.
saw him kind of come out of that reservation that he was having, and I always made sure that I was with him and I was just enjoying myself with him.
Mm.
And it was great. Like it was really really good.
I've started to believe that whatever the experience is on a psychedelic drug is, from what I've researched since doing them, and well, not even since doing it, since I finished that book, because the book actually I realized was exploring this. And I didn't even realize until I was reading it back, thinking, "Oh snap! I've been like exploring and trying to find out what the self is, as I've been writing it." And
I
um,
think social media does that to you, though, doesn't it? It kind of forces you to sort
reflect,
of
yeah,
reflect and look at your essential self, like, or try to find it at the very least.
that's it, yeah,
I
and
get
that's
caught in the all the time. Oh man, this band has got like 2,000 likes on Facebook. Oh man, these guys have got their record distributed, and it just feels like, I want to do that, but I don't know how because I don't know what I don't know. And the only way you can sort of get through that is if you find out what it is you don't know, man. Just go
exactly.
up, you
That
know.
that's a very spiritual statement, in the spiritual world of the people I listen to and have researched. They all say that the first thing you should do is just admit to yourself you don't know what you don't know, and that includes, according to people like Jaggi Vasudev, who's known as Sadhguru, I told you
Uh-huh.
about.
Yeah.
That includes believing in God. If you don't know that there is a God, if you don't feel it, then by all means, don't go out and preach about it or have blind faith. And he says if you want to know, you should engage in some sort of practice to see if you can feel closer to something, and then decide for yourself if you think that is the Holy Spirit, your spirit, the universe, whatever you call it. There is an ability to tap into that though, and I believe in. I fully do, because I've had some wild experiences completely sober, meditating and feeling euphoric and blissful, and like feeling like I can see and hear and almost be the tree outside my house, just meditating, listening to it, and having this
Sounds
wild experience. Yeah,
sounds funky, but it's true, man.
yeah, yeah. It's far out for people who live kind of in their box, in their bubble. They cling on to it for safety, not realizing that that's holding you back, and that you're gonna find the things you're looking for, and it is not scary. It's just all around you. I think what you need in life once you see it. But now I'm
Yeah,
preaching, but like, this is all my experience of it.
I think it's very valid, man. I think it's quite valid that you think like that, that you believe it. That's the main thing. You got
Hmm,
to believe
hmm.
something. I think that's what we often find out,
I
that
believe
you have
things when you feel them, and
to,
I
and I think
engaged
that's
with
what
a practice, and then I felt what they were getting at, and I kept chasing it and following what was happening in the experience, and it became amazing. It was like nothing I've ever experienced before. So I can't say that there isn't something more to life, because there certainly is for me.
Oh, amazing, man.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's how you feel because we should do the. I'm going to try and do the questions. So uh, with Sufism, right? I looked that
Right.
up, and that's. I don't know how deep into it you are. It sounds like your kind of meditation is your music anyway, which
Mm.
gets you closer to that thing I'm talking about, that there's more, there's something else and it's happening, you know. And for you, it's
Mm.
through the music. That's you're hearing it in a sense.
Mm.
So what is it about Sufism that intrigued you and wanted you and felt like you wanted to blend it with your music?
It's, to be honest, they're quite basic. I think simple answers. You know,
Hmm.
it's kind of like when you first know something, or when you first discover something,
Yeah.
and then as you start to live your life with that discovery, it's very like it's very a very shallow discovery, has a very shallow meaning, and then as time develops, you with that practice, all of a sudden it becomes deeper than that. Almost like a tattoo. I got a tattoo of a peace symbol, and then as I started to have it for longer and longer and longer, I started to realize actually it's taken on a different meaning each time. And now the meaning is, well, and this is what the meaning has been for a long time, that when I when I look at it, I always remember, oh, I need to be kind to myself. And
Hmm.
in order for me to be kind to myself, I need to be kind to others. Because when I do good to others, I do good for myself. Peace and
Hmm.
love from within, so that you can express it out.
Hmm.
And with Doopism and wanting to put that with my music, to be honest, it all started thinking, oh man, this is my culture. I'm in this. I'm on this borderline where in England or anywhere else in life,
Hmm.
anywhere else outside of Pakistan, someone asks me, "Yo, dude, where are you from?"
Yeah.
And instead of me saying I'm from England, because I don't feel English at all. The most Western or the most UK I feel is I say, oh, I'm from London, you
Yeah.
know. Otherwise, my immediate thing, and it always takes a lot of effort to say this line 100,000 times. I'm Pakistani, but I was born here.
Hmm.
I always say that, and I've always been very close with my culture. I've been very involved in my culture. I speak the language. I listen to the music. I watch some Bollywood films, even though it's Indian, you know, not Pakistani, but you know, it's from that side of my world or whatever. And when I go back to Pakistan, they ask me, "Where are you from?" And I'm uh, like, you know, I'm Pakistani, but I was born over there, so they call me English. And initially, my whole thing was, all right, my music is a total reflection of who it is that I am. Is I play music that you know I grew up listening to Green Day, and not, I didn't even listen to Pink Floyd or like Led Zeppelin and stuff
Yeah.
like that. It was Green Day, Black Sabbath, Blink 182, Fall Out Boy, and you know a little bit as I got slightly older, it was Metallica and things like that. It was just like all the dark punk,
Hmm.
heavy metal, thrash stuff, you know,
Yeah,
as I
and the
was
pop
growing
punk.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of pop punk as well. And I
Yeah.
felt like I resonated a lot with that. And then I just thought, man, I wanna show what my culture is because I'm very close with it. I want to add to it. Then I started dwelling or adding Indian classical stuff, even if it just meant playing a tanpura, playing a tanpura in the background of one of our songs to add that aesthetic.
Hmm.
You know, I just kind of started to add that. And then as I started to dwell more and more into songwriting and everything, I got more into Sufi poetry, and that's when I realized, man, like I this really resonates with me.
Hmm.
I'm not sure why it does, but there's something that's deep within me that Sufism seems to push me to want to explore further. And as I started to get a bit more into Sufism, the desire to want to blend Sufi style lyrics and poetry with psychedelic rock music started to become more and more apparent.
Psychedelic rock, and in fact, yeah, in that whole genre, I believe there's a element of wanting to transcend, and transcendence meaning get in touch with the higher self. And
Yeah.
I think across the board and from different influences in different places, there is a yearning for that. And through Sufism, you're getting that particular aesthetic from yourself and your history and your culture and your ancestry. And I wanted to know, um, when you are playing and when you're writing this music, does it feel as though you're wanting to contact that? I'm trying to find the best way to say it because there's so many different names people give it. But let's say your higher self, your essential self. Are you touching towards that as you play, or is it a kind of escape, like I said, escapism of your own body and mind? You know, you're going into a place where you feel you're really putting your soul on show.
Is this when we're performing, or when I'm writing, or a bit of both?
Bit of both, yeah.
So I'll take it from the process of when I'm writing. Sometimes I hear something, and it's very strange. It's very Paul McCartney like, and I can promise you, man. I know definitely. I know 5 songs by the Beatles. That's it. And I started listening to the Beatles, and even despite the fact that I've listened to the Beatles, like I've just started to listening to them, I only know 5 songs. That's it, and that was like a year ago or something. That, you know, when my friend said, "Oh, you should listen to the Beatles. I think you'd like them." Okay,
Yeah.
cool. And that was it. I was like, okay, cool. So I listened to it. Now, luckily, I've managed to buy Sergeant Pepper's, and and now, like, okay, cool. I can say I like the Beatles a little bit, but you know, George Harrison is probably my favorite, and
That's
even
who I
then,
was about to mention, actually. Yeah. All that in
and
Indian classical and the transcendent aspect of their music is probably from him wanting to meet. I think is his name Krishnamurti?
Krishnamurti, yeah.
That's right. The
Yeah.
transcendental meditation movement.
Yeah, and you know, like I saw this GQ interview with Paul McCartney yesterday, day before yesterday, and I watched it over the 2 days. It was 20 minute, half an hour long interview. Very, very wonderful. Just very simple interview about how the Lennon McCartney era of writing songs came about and how they did it and his views on it and why he wrote certain songs and whatnot. And I think I have quite a Paul McCartney approach without even knowing, just listening to the way he talks about it. Just sometimes I hear something, you know. Sometimes I hear something in a conversation. Like yesterday, I was having a conversation with my friend Nico about just about life or whatever. You know, he just messaged me out of the blue saying, "Hey, buddy, how's it going? I just wanted to, you know, let you know that I'm here for you." It was a message like that.
Yeah.
And then, you know, obviously I responded with such gratification and such love that, you know, we got talking, and then he mentioned that, "Oh, but listen to this tune, man. It's almost like a mantra." And I was like, instantly in my mind, I heard, I've been listening to this song, Mantra, and I was like, man, I'm gonna write a song called Music Mantra, you know? Like music mantra. I'll write it, and listening to the song, it just kind of gave me a few ideas, and then diving into the filing cabinet of my mind, so to speak,
Yeah.
of the poems and stuff that I've read, the poems and stuff that I've tried to interpret. I think, right, okay, cool. Like, this is how I will go about writing a song. And
So it's a little bit of that Daft Punk thing you mentioned as well there. You know, the collage of things that you love, the things that have spoken to you, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. And basically, you know, that I guess in a way, without like being conscious to it, you know, I write a riff and I think, right, yeah, here it is. This riff is staying with me right now, and I'm really, really enjoying it. And you know, slowly, I'm kind of building myself towards an achievement. And then it gets to a bit where I'm like, okay, I'm stuck now, and I just need to sit here and I need to work through it. I need to grind through it, so to speak, you know? I need to grind through it and get there. And so, you know, the riff will probably start off something something kind of like.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, that would be the intro to Music Mantra,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, like, yeah, I just sit there for like hours trying to think of them, trying to think of a melody, and once I get that bit, then all right, in a sense that enlightened higher self stops, and I get all mathematical and mechanical on it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that aspect. Then when it comes to performing live, I always remember what Vince McMahon said. Do you know who Vince
Oh
McMahon is?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he said because before they used to have
The $1 Million Walk.
yeah. So before we you know before Raw, like WWE Raw went live,
Yeah.
they used to have all the shows pre-recorded. Then when it went live, when he just took that decision to go live, he said, when it's live, nothing can go wrong. And I kind of enjoyed that, because it's like, well, yeah, I've spent so many hours in my bedroom writing this song, or I've spent so many hours in the park writing this song, so many hours in the rehearsal room practicing this song and not perfecting it, because I don't believe in total perfection, but
Mm-hmm.
we're trying to get it to a standard that I'm happy with,
Mm-hmm.
which usually takes a long time. But once it's there, you know, it's there. And when you go do it live, man, then that it's just a full on transcendental state. It does take its time when I play the first tune, and my voice is a bit shaky because I'm a bit like nervous. But then
Yeah.
after the first guitar solo, I think, right, okay, here we are. You know, we're here now. Then there are times during a performance where, you know, I'm forgetting about what it is, and like what it is that I'm doing, and the reason of why I'm doing it. And I guess that reason is very simple. I don't really believe that I'm built to do anything else.
Mm-hmm.
I don't come from a family that's mega musical. I come from a family very lucky of like cricketers and of writers, and you know, people in the army, which is a bit ironic, I guess, because, you know, I'm all peace and love hippie, and I've got like
Yeah, similar
army,
for me.
yeah, like, you know, I've got army generals and people in very very high positions,
Mm-hmm.
you know, in like the Pakistan army on my dad's side. But, you know, essentially, I feel like, you know, I was made to do this because nothing else I've ever done. Been very very privileged to have flown around the world in odd places that not many people have been to, and also
Mm-hmm.
been lucky enough to travel to Pakistan. I like also a place where a lot of people who I know who haven't been because of who I am. I can go there whenever I want, and nothing has given me more joy than playing music and writing songs and being able to express myself in my day-to-day life.
It's funny as well because all while you were saying that, I was thinking we've got so much in common, right? The way we grew up and the things that we enjoyed. Like, I used to love watching wrestling with my brother, and
Yeah,
we used to like fight it, act it out, play fight. And you liked similar things to me in culture, the American pop punk music,
yeah.
uh, Dragon Ball Z.
Oh my god! Don't
Yeah,
get
you
me
know,
started on that.
and it was that bubble of culture we were in as teenagers,
Yeah.
and it's incredible how much change occurs as you're growing, almost without realizing. Like, you know, the way we're at now, I've become far better at expressing myself through words than I ever was, and I'm
Yeah.
sure that's for you with music and for words. You're very well spoken, and yeah, and can you think of the moment where like it sort of clicked, like this was the way you were going?
I don't even need to think about that. I can tell you right now. I can
Yeah.
tell you right now. It filled me with a lot of joy when you said I watched it wrestling with my brother. We used to act it out. Giza, my brother and I, in 2012, we went to Miami to watch WrestleMania.
That's awesome.
and like, you know, it was so awesome. I came home from work one day and I just see him on the sofa with the laptop, and I used to work at a pub then, and I just looked at his face, and I knew he'd done something. It was the face of, I've done something and I'm not sure whether I've done the right thing or not, because I feel like I've done something wrong, but I'm very pleased with myself. So I was like, so what's up? What have you done? He goes, Sam, listen, I bought tickets to WrestleMania. I thought, are you fucking serious? He goes, yeah. So I said, all right then. And then I looked at flights, I looked at all of this, you know, I got my dad involved. And like, Dad, listen, you've got to do this. My brother talked so much rubbish to my dad about how he got it. Oh, it's a competition, we won it, but we have to pay for the flights, blah, blah, blah. And my dad was looking at him like, do you think I'm an asshole? and you got Hall of Fame tickets. And at the time, so it was so the Christmas before that, so WrestleMania was in May, I think, June.
Mm-hmm.
And the Christmas that had just passed, my brother bought me Heavier Than Heaven. It's the biography by Mr. Charles R. Cross,
Mm-hmm.
on based on the life of Kurt Cobain, the life and death of Kurt Cobain, and of essentially Nirvana. But when you read that book, there's a lot of what Kurt Cobain had done, even in Nirvana, but it was more about his life. It was more about his life. And Charles R. Cross also wrote the Jimi Hendrix book, Room Full of Mirrors. And if there is any biography that I recommend on Hendrix and Kurt Cobain, it would be the writings of Charles R. Cross. He even asked people who didn't know Kurt outside of his class, just to make sure that they had a great picture of him. So, you know, growing up, I never listened to Nirvana either, but I knew a couple of songs. It was only when I started to read this book, I was like, oh, okay, I'll listen to this album then. Listened to it, loved it, didn't like this, but didn't like some of that. Thought like 90% of the album was rubbish, but 2 of these songs really stuck out, and then so on and so forth. And it wasn't when we left Newark Airport, which is in Jersey, and we were flying over Miami, and it was so strange because it was a small flight from Newark to Miami, and I had just finished reading the book, and at that moment they'd said Kurt Cobain had committed suicide and all this jazz, and I was on the last 3 or 4 pages. I had finished reading the book, and I cried. It was really strange because that was the moment that I had felt that, oh man, like Kurt Cobain he's actually dead. He's actually gone now. And it was really strange. It was this transcendental moment. You know, we're using the word transcendence.
Yeah.
You know, it was transcendental that the sun peeped through my window seat, and and just a ray just kind of went straight through the window over the book onto my hand, and it was that moment where I said, you know what, I'm gonna fucking be a musician, man. I'm gonna be a musician.
That's amazing. That's yeah.
For the longest time,
It brought your attention. Yeah, it caught you.
Yeah. From the age of like 9, 10. I mean, you know, I remember I was 11, 12, 13. You know, my stepfather would be like, yo, come help me clean the front porch or whatever, and you know, it's an eye-rolling moment. Oh God, you know, I don't want to. Because I'm doing it, and as he's lifting the leaves up and putting them in the black bag that I was supposed to be holding, I've got the broom in my hand, but turned over, strumming it like a guitar. You know? And I'd never played guitar at that point. It was inside of me that it was a secret that I even kept from myself. I want to be a musician. I want to play music. I want to do this. And then around about 2003, when School of Rock came out, I wanted to be Zach Mooneyham. Essentially, it was Jack Black and the School of Rock class, especially Zach Mooneyham.
Is he the guitarist kid? Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember him. Is that the part where he's like,
yeah, exactly.
You could do it like this.
To want to play guitar. And so in 2003, I booked my first guitar lessons. I did 2 of them, and all I learned was James Bond. And I don't even know if I can bloody play it, man. I don't even know. Like. So I don't even remember
I
it,
had a
but
piece of it. Yeah, I could hear it.
and you know, like what do you call it? I tried to stay in the class, but I didn't. And I just thought, man, you know what? Forget it. But I already knew, even at 13, that Jimi Hendrix taught himself, Kurt Cobain taught himself. You
Hmm.
know. And so I would just spend hours in my room just learning how to play guitar with no ambition, with no like end goal, no means to an end to say I'm going to be a musician. It just all started from School of Rock, wanting to play guitar, listening to music, like like sick music, like
Hmm.
Metallica, Slayer, Anthrax, like listening to 80s hair metal and things like that. All of that, and I sat in my room for hours, and it was only from 2003 that was what that all that was happening. But it was
So,
only in 2012 when I had that moment after reading the Kurt Cobain biography by Charles R. Cross, is when I said, when I get back to London, I'm going to start. Actually, even when I was in Miami, I was writing a lot.
mm,
I had written so many lyrics. I was writing and writing and writing and writing, and that was just writing hundreds and hundreds of poems based on the fact that I'd been reading Sufism for about 2 years. Like in 2010 or 2011, I think I started, and since then I was just writing and writing a lot. And 2012, I say, was the moment, the definitive moment where I felt that yes, I'm. This is something I'm going to pursue. This is who it is that I am, and there's nothing more to it.
that's amazing. That's it. That's kind of what we've been talking about this whole interview, really, or conversation, is that divine inspiration, or whether you call it divine, whatever it is, something inside clicked, and it brought your attention to what really mattered to you, and that's why we're here now, which is quite a beautiful thing, I think.
Yeah.
My final question, Mr. Samir Khan, Senor Khan,
Yes, Senor Hackett.
the EP Alif, if I've said that correctly,
Alif.
Alif. It just
Mm-hmm.
dropped on SoundCloud, so I'm reading right from my question sheet here, and
Yeah.
right away that instantly recognizable classic rock sound. Uh, but actually, before I can continue the question, I noticed there's a lot of metal, there's a lot of rocking out hard in your music that influenced you, the kind of music you like, I mean.
Yeah.
And you've gone for still a rocking out hard, but less metal and psychedelic. What brought you to more psychedelic waters?
Charles R. Cross, man.
That book, those books,
Seriously.
Jimi Hendrix, yeah.
Yeah. I just read, like, because when I was growing up, my favorite guitarist of all time was Slash, and I had a politics teacher, Julian, in Uxbridge College. I didn't do too well in high school. I went to repeat in Uxbridge College, and it was more of an adult kind of thing there, because everything was like, okay, you have to turn up, but whether you study or not, it's down to you, and
Hmm.
it's good to have that responsibility. So you were spoken to like you were an adult. And I
Yeah.
remember Julian would always take the piss out of me, and he would always he wouldn't take the
Slash
mick.
gets a lot of hate, yeah.
Yeah, he would say Slash, like, no, it's Hendrix,
Yeah.
and then he would tell me like, oh, Hendrix released this album Blues, and it's just all of his, like, a lot of his tracks, some unreleased stuff,
Mm.
and it's all unreleased, but different versions, but more bluesy versions of his stuff. I thought, nah, Slash this, Slash that. And as I started to grow up, and then I started to think, right, okay, I want to discover this 27 Club. Like
Yeah.
Kurt Cobain was my first introduction to it, and then Hendrix was my second, and then Jim Morrison later down the line.
Yeah.
But essentially, reading that book by Charles R. Cross, I realized that actually I love this style. I love this music, and just like I did with Bleach and Nevermind and In Utero and
Mm.
everything like that, I followed Hendrix's three LPs that he released with the Experience, with his first band, like Foxy Lady,
Yeah.
Burning of a Midnight Lamp,
Oh
Hey
yeah.
Joe.
I know Hendrix well. My
Yeah.
uncle is a guitarist, and yeah, it's one of his all-time favorites. In fact,
Yeah.
you're the third person I know who loves Hendrix. The other was my roommate at uni. He had a poster, and he would play his songs as well.
Yeah, amazing. So that was that, and I think definitely what happened was I came to a crossroads in it. I used to wear baggy ripped jeans and like black band t-shirts. And I swapped the bagginess for just a little bit tighter and no rips to what do you call it?
That much looser psychedelic aesthetic, that look, as alongside the feel of the music, and
Yeah,
it's less like even though it's the heavy sound, I think the slight difference of psychedelic is that it's it doesn't like slap you like a metal song does. You know, metal songs like shouting at you like, listen. Psychedelic is, to me, it kind of it's like a wave. It slowly gets under you know? Yeah, and you ride it almost.
Yeah, and I think so. So obviously, growing up, I was a metalhead. I was definitely a metalhead. I tried to grow my hair so long.
And that's quite. I think metal's quite a teenage sound, isn't it? Even though obviously grown men love metal, but I think there's the element of a teenager of like, look at me, you know.
Yeah, actually,
And not even in a bad way. It's just a
I completely agree with that.
yeah.
Because I still listen to metal sometimes, and I just think, fuck, this sounds so good. Like, this sounds insane. Like, I remember on Cliff Burton Day. I think Cliff Burton Day is officially the 14th. No,
I got into Periphery this year actually, metal wise. Like they do all the really technical, crazy stuff with the genty noise. It's really cool.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
If you've ever heard of a band called Periphery, check them out. They're really like they're over complex, but it's not the point. It just gives them a unique sound, and they do some cool stuff. And they've got kind of emo-y vocals, but it's a great sound, I think.
Yeah, and what do you call it? I feel like, so when I listen to the Metallica albums on Cliff Burton Day on the 24th of February, I think it is, 14th of, I think it's 24th of Feb. I was like, man, I don't remember like listening to these albums and enjoying it as much as I am right now, you know? And I think obviously like growing up and reading the Hendrix books and all that stuff, I think that is exactly where that tipping point came. The style came, I think, you know, Sufism being involved more in my life wanted me to be a bit more calmer and a bit more, I don't want to say educated and sound a bit patronizing.
No.
However, I want to say I was educated more on myself, learning more about myself, and wanting to sort of explore ways in which I can explore myself. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
Yeah, so I think that's where it was, buddy.
I think there's a similarity across the board in all spiritual pursuits, and definitely that comes up. And I think everything I've read about, and I've been going in and out of the different schools. Like I read some Zen, Vedic tradition. Ramana Maharshi he kind of is inspired by that Vedic tradition of non-duality, and what I've come across in all these different things is that similarity of it, finding the self, finding the essential self, if you will.
Yeah.
There's across the board, and different. I think they have different names for what they find, you know. But I think there's a universal message, perhaps, in all of them, coming from myself. the outsider to all of these things. All I believe, if like when we're exploring these things, I think that what we call our God or God in general is
Mhm.
is found there. It's not found just having blind faith in something that is separate from you. You're of it. Do you know what I mean?
Indeed, very
It's
much.
and it's you as well. It's going through you. It's going through all of us. You know.
Yeah, yeah, 100%, man, 100%.
I read a great book about that recently, and one of the lines was how we're obviously energy that's transferred. Obviously, our bodies, the forms we inhabit now, will perish, but the energy will carry on. And through us, however, a piece of and what this guy said, through you, it exists a piece of the divine flame. And once you become aware of that and get more in touch with it, you can express it, you know? And I think that's why we love music.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right, man.
And whatever it is, you know, whether it's that someone angry in pain or whatever, or someone in love, someone ecstatic, it all comes through. And you don't even, how can we describe why a music does that as well, you know? So I think these people have all the different spiritual traditions are saying something very true, you know? And I think we should definitely pay attention to that. And I think the fact that you are of your music is incredible, and it's something that is sorely needed right now. Like especially in music, which has become so dulled down and so lacking soul. I think pop music, especially. I think your music and a lot of the bands that are becoming really trendy in your scene. I think, and I think this is why is because we want this. You know, we want to hear the soul being expressed. So I've
Yeah,
got a huge amount of respect for what you're doing. It's incredible. I think you're bringing it back, and you bring it back with a fresh voice, the voice of something that people need to, I think, more than ever need to be aware of as well, because the Islamic world gets a bad rap in the Western world right now, and it's it's a really wishy washy area because we're not hearing all the voices. We're not hearing the truth really. We're hearing the voices of fear, right? That's what's being broadcasted is all the time is the fears instead of the love on both sides, and the voice of the love needs to start speaking up again.
yeah. I mean, yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I try not to. What I want to do essentially, and I do that is the music is a total reflection of who it is that I am. I don't think I can hide that, or at least it's an aspect. It's projecting an aspect of me. That's for
Hmm.
sure. In some of our tunes or whatever, like especially when we're doing like a jam, I often say Allah's name. I often say Allah,
Hmm.
and if I sing it in some way, or if I'm gonna do a sargam, which is like a run of a Hindustani classical scale. So,
Hmm.
so a sargam would be like salga madani sa sa ni da ma pa da ga
Hmm.
ah no, and using those tones or whatever,
Yeah.
I will say Allah's name during like just before we do Chandni, before we do that live. I'll be like Allah, and it's not to sort of say that everyone prays to Allah. No, it's just a reflection of me, and God can be anything you want it to be. It can
Hmm.
even be yourself. The I think the main point of Karma Sheen is I want you to believe in something. I want you to believe in God. I want you to believe in the universe. At the very least, I want you to believe in yourself. Because ultimately, in this big, vast, lonely planet, the suicide rate for men is crazy. We are
Yeah.
now dealing with mental health and depression and anxiety. Anxiety being the most common
Yeah.
in such a high volume that we feel so alone. And just because I say Allah, just because I say Sufism, it doesn't mean that, or just because I say Hindustani classical music,
Hmm.
it doesn't mean that I am being exclusive. If anything, I want to be inclusive. I want
Hmm.
to include people to hear this type of music. It's my aim is to educate people on Ustad Salamat Ali Khan Sahib. Or I wanna invite people to listen to Ustad Shafqat Ali Khan Sahib and Ustad Latafat Ali Khan Sahib. I want to invite people to listen to Hindustani classical music, North Indian, because that's what I've learned. Of course, from there you can go further south into the Carnatic region. You know, of anything south of Delhi, that would be South India. That would be a South Indian Carnatic music. But don't quote me on that. I might be wrong.
But so deep down, so if I can cut to the heart of it, deep down all these influences is a message, right? So that, and what's that fundamental message is
You're not alone. We are together.
yeah,
You know, we're together. Go and explore things, because
yeah,
you know you might not know what it is that you want. And the thing is, you can learn what it is that you don't want from other people. I don't want to be treated like this. I don't
hmm,
want to live a life like that. I don't want to speak the way this person speaks to people.
hmm,
You know. However, you can only ever learn what it is that you do want from life from yourself. You've never been skydiving before. Okay, go skydiving. Oh, I didn't like that. Okay, so I know that's something that I don't want, but that's one finger in the pie
hmm.
of stories. Life is like a massive pie selection. You have a billion billions of pies. You can try be a snake charmer. You can become a furniture maker. You can read books in another language, trying to learn another language. You do absolutely anything, and there will be that one point where you think, like, damn, this is what it is that I want
This
to
is
do.
it.
This is it. And if I can try to give that message through music, even if I use that stage as a platform to say, oh, good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for listening to that. This tune is this. It's about that. And I just want to let you guys know that you guys are not alone. I'm here for you. You know, we can listen to this music together. And if you feel like you don't like it, then that's fantastic, because it means that it's another no on your way to that one yes that you need in life. Even if I can use that, that is what my message is, and I guess I try to reflect that into my everyday life, man.
That's amazing, man. I like that a lot. It's, I think we've got similar goals with what we do creatively, actually. Cast off your fear basically, and find out what it is that's really important.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
and that's it with the music, you know. As you say, escape into it or be enlightened by it. Is it the same thing?
Well, escape from your mind at least, isn't it?
Definitely. So yeah, I think that's an amazing place we could wrap on that actually. If you want though, we could do my final question, which was just to go um, into detail about Aleph, if you're ready for
Yeah, for sure.
one final part to this.
Yeah.
So Aleph just dropped on SoundCloud, and this question started earlier. So that instantly recognizable classic British rock sound pangs on the track like Through the Night, which is
Mhm.
the intro track.
Yeah.
Um, what started Aleph off, and what have you aimed to achieve creatively with this EP? And I feel like we've sort of answered that, but just with this EP in particular.
So what started? Ultimately, it's just my ambition, isn't it? It's a goal. It's a small aim. Oh, I'm in a band. Oh, I want to release an EP. Okay, cool. So then,
Yeah.
got about 7 songs, and at first I thought, okay, it's my first release. I'll just release these 7 songs. But having spoken to quite a lot of people in a non-spiritual self, or like in a very capitalistic, like like a mono kind of way, just speak to them. Oh, what do you reckon about this? How should we go about it? They always said, I've always had one common thing, and that is release your music bit by bit. Try to introduce people to it. And I feel like the track that we have, we've got Through the Night, we have The Magician, we have Chandni, and then we have the single Winter Again. Those four songs, I think, are a perfect introduction to show what Karma Sheen, what I'm all about. And And I feel like, despite the fact that it has a very like pop style song in The Magician, I feel like it has very like dark connotations to it, you know,
Hmm.
especially just with the sound and the mood of the music. And I think what started Aleph really was just that, was just pure ambition to try to get something done. I mean, this EP, having like, you know, no funds, no education regarding on how to do things and whatnot, in a world that was super moving forward and super evolving, like in a time where you kind of realize that actually you don't need studios.
Hmm.
Like you don't need studios
No, it's
anymore.
all
You can
changing now.
do it all at home, man.
Yeah.
And you know, I was in that wave, so it took like 3 years for me to actually finally do it, and I ended up doing it in a studio anyway. We did it at Vertical Room Studios with Pete, and Pete he's a legend.
Big up Pete.
Yeah, he really taught me. He really taught us in that moment what it takes to write songs and have them on a record. You can't just have like a 16-minute song. I mean, unless you're Dream Theater, and the aim, I guess, really is to end up being able to write a 7-minute, 8-minute song that's captivating, like this band called Earth. You know,
I know them actually. Yeah.
they've got this beautiful,
Crazy
beautiful,
psychedelic soundscape going on. Yeah.
soundscape, and they have this beautiful title, lion, honey dripping from the lion's skull.
I think it wasn't that one I heard, but that definitely sounds like one of their track names. Like they've always got these really poetic.
I'm
Like,
just, I'm
go
just,
ahead.
I'm just on Google right now. The bees made honey in the lion's skull. That's what it's called. It's so wonderful, so like beautiful. One day that's the aim, you know, to get there.
Yeah.
And the name Aleph, it's Aleph does it. I mean, Aleph has strong connotations only because it's from the Arabic language. It's from the Arabic alphabet. The first letter of the Arabic alphabet is Aleph,
Hmm.
and also the Urdu alphabet Aleph.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to, you know, it's purely aesthetic. But I think again, man, I mentioned earlier that, like a tattoo, eventually it will come into fruition, and it will bring its own meaning, and I will have a more definitive answer as to why I called it Aleph.
Hmm.
Aleph,
Hmm.
you know, it started through ambition. I
So
wanted
it's
to,
in a way it's the beginning then. As simple as that. It's the beginning.
yes, it
That's
is,
what that name represents. That's the you know you wanted to start something. You wanted to start this band off. Yeah.
yes, indeed,
Yeah.
indeed.
You've launched Karma Sheen now.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
It's happening.
Lord's, yeah,
From that flight with the sun hitting your Kurt Cobain biography to
yeah.
to now. You basically right. I live the beginning.
Yep, Aleph. Yes, the beginning. I mean, I think
Amazing.
even the like the first surah. I don't know how to explain surah. I think I'd say, for the lack of a better phrase and being very careful with the way I use it, it's a story of the Quran. So there's quite a lot of surahs. I think maybe 114, 117. I mean, I'm on Google right now. So how many surahs in the Quran? So, oh yeah, 114. So there's 114 surahs, stories in the Quran, and the first surah is actually an oath. So so it's called Fatiha.
Hmm.
But then the first official surah, it starts off with Alif. It says Alif Lam Mim,
Hmm.
and that first letter that you say in the first official surah of the Quran is Alif, and for me it just makes more and more sense, like, you know, to have that.
Beginning. The beginning of your story.
Yes, yeah, the beginning, bringing Karma Sheen into the airwaves.
Very, very good. And so creatively with the EP then, is it kind of showing, is it like flexing your muscles a little bit? Are you showing what you can do? Since it's the beginning, you want to show the world what Car Machine's about, and also, uh, directions your influences you've taken, and
I
putting them on
I feel like
display.
it's a bit in it. It's a little bit in its infancy, because
Mhm.
you can see Through the Night, proper British/American rock, but obviously clearly psych as well. And then you've got The Magician, which is a bit more. I think that would be more deemed towards like American. I would think American kind of like pop kind of stuff,
Is
and
that
then
the track with the lost lover in the lyrics?
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
got
yeah.
kind of a Tame Impala feeling with that, and I think it might have just been because obviously I'm referencing them because this is what I'm saying where that's trendy, you know, that it's become trendy because that guy is bearing a piece of his soul in the music, and it's something we all recognize a breakup, but the way he's putting it across is clearly this has happened, you know?
Mhm. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's my take on what it was like dealing with someone who didn't know that they had strong mental health issues,
Mm.
and dealing with them, so to speak. And I say dealing very loosely because I never dealt with them. I was very much in love with them.
Mm.
It sort of brought out my own issues that I
Mm.
didn't know that I had. And so, to kind of start off the tune like, and I scream my life. She said I was fake, but she wished she was dead.
She said I was fake and she wished she was dead. I lay my head down at your feet, I could even bring the moon down to your face as I enjoy the view from the sea. Enjoy the view from the sea. She was a young girl, he was a young man. They showed each other what there were. 7 years of what there were.
Was very much a summary of our like turmoil,
Mhm.
and I really wanted to have that as a bearing of my soul on that.
That's what I got straight away, yeah, listening to it. And hearing you play it again, actually.
Yeah,
And
always.
that intensity, I think, helps. I shouldn't say people should be drawn towards things that will ban them or hurt them. Um, However, being able to reflect on it and having something about you, you can turn something, these experiences, whether you can deem, whether you stick a value on them as good or bad, you reflect on them, you can turn them into something. And I think uh, you've got that ability. In fact, I think you've got a lot to you, man. Listen to you talk. I think there's a lot to you and a lot, a kind of a treasure trove that you've got. And I say stick with it. From my listening to you, my opinion, you've got something about you that can sort of put a finger on the pulse of it. You've how to put this in a perfect way, or I know you don't believe in perfection from earlier, but how to put it, you've got loads going on creatively. I can just tell. I can feel that as you speak about all the things that and the way different experiences have stood out to you, and the way you're digging into this, into the self, and finding that essential part. And with songs like this, even with that, as you said, it's a poppy riff.
Yeah.
That something is shining through, and I think you're on the Aleph is a perfect name for the EP actually. With myself trying to put this some words because you are on the cusp of something interesting, very interesting,
Thank you,
and
man.
yeah,
Appreciate
I think it's going to be a special journey.
it. Me too.
Yeah, well, I think it's already begun. We're already on this special journey now.
Indeed, man. And also, like it's just like it's just great that I get to share that with someone like yourself, and I really appreciate your interest, buddy. I really appreciate that, and also
Oh,
give me the
ditto.
opportunity
It feels
that
like I
much.
fell into all this. Like I'd never projected this as where where I'd be in my own state of creativity. I didn't project I'd end up in any particular path, but I didn't know I'd be here for certain. I used to think maybe I'd write a book about zombies. That's me at the beginning, or I'd write a film like a stoner comedy film, and I took a step into a territory where to find a truer expression, and I think that's what you've done as well. And I think it's going to create something very, very interesting for both of us, I imagine. But right now, you're at the beginning, like I said, and I look forward to more.
Thank you, buddy. I look forward to getting into the studio and recording the next 3 songs. There will be 3 songs in that for sure, and already in the process of writing an album. So we're just really trying to think of riffs. That one I showed you earlier with that. Bit of a Karma Sheen exclusive right there, unreleased, and
Get some of the early stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Get some of the early stuff in the record and everything like that. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to just doing it, from that aesthetic point of view, and then being able to use that platform to just express, man.
I'm looking forward to it, man.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, thank you for 2 hours, nearly, no, 1 hour and a half of your time.
No, thank you, man. I really appreciate that. It's always wonderful to be able to sort of express something that you believe in, and it's wonderful that I get to do it with someone who also believes in themselves too. So thank you.
Well, this is all going to be available for people to see once they scan through all these answers and stuff, and people will be able to know what you're about as well in words, not just for your music. Thanks to all this, so it's going to be pretty cool, man.
Then she found a magician, oh yes she did, to show the magic of the sun, to show her the magic of the sun. As he lays his head down at your feet, pretty baby, I could even bring the moon down to your face as I enjoy the view from the sea. Enjoy the view from the sea. Oh yeah.
Exactly, man. Exactly.
Sometimes it's simple things, the bodily function. Sometimes it's something else, something you can't quite explain, I think.
Exactly, and I don't think everything, and I don't think anything or everything really needs a rationale behind it. Sometimes you just
Absolutely
have to...
not. In fact, sometimes the thing you need to do is abandon rationality. That's one of the important teachings I've learned from a Zen teacher, in fact. So you didn't even need to learn Zen to know that.
Sometimes, the answers are right there in front of you. It's like a door, man. You can go through it, but you always knock.
Yeah.
Just knock and welcome yourself in, and you'll find all the answers from within, man.
Yeah. I think for a lot of us, and for me, when I was younger, it was just feeling afraid to go through it, I guess. And that's probably a big part of becoming who you are, isn't it? Is once you cast off that fear and walk through, then you know.
Yeah, it's very true. Very, very true. I think that's where it all stems from, though, doesn't it?
Mhm.
Fear. And the moment you get out of your fear is the moment when the magic happens.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a classic meme, I think, isn't it? I've seen that on Facebook a few times. It's like there's like a diagram, isn't it? Like your comfort zone is one place, and then where the magic happens is outside it.
Wow. Awesome, man.
So someone else's beat is there for that one.
Modern day philosophy through Facebook.
Yeah, man, it's sometimes useful, that stupid site. I've quit it now though. I deleted that new one I made too. I was like reading research and I thought, you know what? I think I can do this just with Google. And a lot of people on Reddit have said the same thing, like that social media wasn't helping them to get to where they wanted as much as it was just taking up more time. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna cast away that world and see if I can still have a social life without it. Turns out you can easily. But you know, I don't hate on anyone who wants to use it or think of it as a platform that can be used in a good way. I think it can, like anything, it's just using it correctly, right? But I can't use it correctly. It just bugs me after a while.
Sometimes I get so distracted, man. Like if I've got 10 things to do,
Yeah.
I won't do any of them because I'm like, oh, notifications, someone has just liked your shit.
That's it, man. Exactly. And I just thought, this is stupid, and that was it for me.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Alright then, mate. Well,
Yeah,
before
like,
you go-
oh, we're doing that British thing. I love that. And we gotta like end the convo, and we're like, right, on to the next thing. Love it.
Before you go,
Yeah.
I'll play something for you for about 1 minute
Go.
as a reflection of how this conversation has made me feel.
Cool. And if you'd like to hear more from Samir Khan and Karma Sheen, be sure to give them a like on Facebook and go to their SoundCloud now. Links in the description to hear Alif in full. And if you'd like to hear more from me, stay tuned. More is on the way. And please be sure to go to nmzine.com for regular updates and articles.